Hello everyone. Let's discuss principle of superposition and pressure build-up test in this session. In pressure build-up test, I will take Horner plots.
Now let's discuss diffusivity equation. I want to be deriving the entire equation. This particular derivation you can see in the Reservoir Engineering Handbook by Tarak Ahmed. It has been given very wonderfully by Tarak Ahmed sir, the derivation part. Okay, so I will be discussing only the numericals. I will be discussing those concepts which are genuinely useful for you guys in your gate preparation. Okay, so coming to this diffusivity equation, let's talk about the assumptions and limitations. Assumptions are, for a radial flow it is applicable, homogeneous and a isotropic porous media. It is applicable for a uniform thickness, for a single phase flow, for a laminar flow, and the rock and fluid properties is independent of the pressure. Okay, so these are the assumptions and the limitations for diffusivity equation. Okay, in the gate examination, these assumptions may be asked. Okay, in MCQs or in multiple choice questions, this particular thing can be asked. So this is the formula. This is the diffusivity equation, where K is the permeability, R is the radial position, P is the pressure, Ct is the total compressibility, T is the time in hours, phi is the porosity, and mu is the viscosity in Cp. Now, I know that this would be, if I'm converting this into eta which is also termed as diffusivity constant, where eta equal to 0.00264 K upon phi mu Ct. Okay, now if I'm replacing this term with eta, so this would be this expression would be the final diffusivity equation. All right, now in this diffusivity equation I am going for a EI solution or a line source solution. Solution to the diffusivity equation that is based on the following assumptions: infinite acting reservoir, that is the reservoir is infinite in size, the well is producing at a constant flow rate, the reservoir is at a uniform pressure Pi when the production begins, the well with a wellbore radius of Rw is centered in a cylindrical reservoir of radius Re, and no flow across the outer boundary, that is at R. That means I have considered a cylindrical reservoir with a wellbore radius Rw. Okay, a cylindrical reservoir. Rw is my wellbore radius, and my reservoir radius is Re, and I am assuming that it will be infinite acting reservoir. That is, my reservoir is infinite in size, and the flow rate I am keeping is constant, and the reservoir I am assuming it to be at a uniform pressure Pi. Okay, at time t equal to 0 my pressure is assumed to be Pi, initial pressure, and the well is centered at the center position, my well is there. Okay, and I am assuming that there will be no flow from the outer boundary. Alright, okay, now on solving this diffusivity equation by using this EI function, my final answer would be this. This would be this expression, or this formula would be the solution, EI solution or a line source solution for diffusivity equation considering these assumptions. Now this is equal to P, that is pressure at distance and time, equal to Pi, which is my initial reservoir pressure, is equal to 70.6 Q mu B upon KH into EI. This term is EI function term. EI into minus 948 phi mu Ct R square upon Kt. Okay, now the P or RT will be pressure at radius R from the well after some time t equal to time, K is the permeability, and Q naught is my flow rate. Now what I am doing is that now I am planning to replace this particular function as x. So x is equal to 948 phi mu Ct R square upon Kt. Now for x less than 0.01 case, I can go for a log approximation. Again, the derivation of this particular thing has been given in Reservoir Engineering Handbook by Tarak Ahmed sir. So you can go, you can refer that. Now on placing x less than 0.01 condition, I can go for a log approximation. So my final answer would be this. Okay, where RT is equal to Pi minus 162.6 Q mu B upon KH into log of KT upon phi mu Ct R square minus 3.23. Alright, okay. Now let's move further. Now, how did I get this particular equation? I have a derivation for it. Now, this is the initial term where P is equal to Pi 70.6 Q mu B into E minus EI minus X. Okay, this was the solution for line source diffusivity equation. Now, assuming the case of x less than 0.01, So my EI minus X is, again I can go for a log approximation. EI minus X will become my ln of 1.786. Okay, log approximation has been taken into consideration, and the condition is short distance, long time. Now on placing this EI minus X as my ln 1.786, I will get this expression. Now I am placing X as 948 5 mu ct r square upon kt. On placing that, I will get this. Now introducing skin. Now I introduced the skin factor. Okay, now introducing the skin, that means I have negated skin. On doing that, I will get this expression. Okay, so on solving this, my final expression would be this. So this is how I obtain this particular formula. You won't be asked derivation, but you need to know the assumptions, you need to know the limitations, and you need to know the formula. Let's discuss principle of superposition. The superposition principle asserts that the total pressure change at a point in the reservoir is a linear sum of the changes in pressure due to each well in the reservoir. The principle, or the superposition principle, implies that a pressure disturbance will propagate through the reservoir even if the source of the disturbance changes or disappears. Okay, that means, let's say if let this be my well, this is my observation well. Okay, now if I'm recording some sort of pressure response in this well. Okay, so this pressure response, whatever pressure response I am getting in this particular well, observation well, the responses will be affected by the wells which are producing far away from each other. This well might be having different flow rate, or maybe having some sort of interference with the drainage area might be interfering. Okay, so that means, let's say if I'm having 3 wells in this particular field, and if I'm recording a pressure at this particular observation well, then the pressure response at this observation well will be affected by the responses of well 1, well 2 and well 3. Position that we need to take into consideration when we are going for a well testing, those are effect of rate change, effect of multiple wells, and effect of boundary. Okay, let's discuss further.
Let's see the effect of rate change. You can see that in this particular well, I have produced my well at different rates, that is at Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4. Okay, and correspondingly I have measured my pressure. You can see that in this particular figure, let's say I have started to produce my well at Q1 rate, and after some time I have started to produce at Q2 rate. Okay, so the actual rate, so the first rate would be Q1, and the second rate that I am producing, it will have the effect of my Q1 also. Okay, so when I'm going for a second rate, at that time I also need to account for Q1. That means over here my rate would be Q2 minus Q1. Okay, similarly I have taken an example of 4 different flow rates. Okay, that means for my first rate, that will be Q1, second rate of Q2 will be affected by Q1, so it will be Q2 minus Q1. My third rate Q3 will be affected by my earlier rates, so it will be Q3 minus Q2, and my fourth rate would be Q4 minus Q3. Okay, and correspondingly I have measured the pressures over here. Alright, okay, now to find out what would be my delta P total, okay, pressure drop, total pressure drop, that would be equal to my delta P because of Q1 minus Q0, delta P because of Q2 minus Q1, delta P because of Q3 minus Q2, and delta P because of Q4 minus Q3. Okay, and correspondingly all the pressure drops I can find out. So you need to remember this particular formula of finding out the pressure drops. So for that we know that for delta P Q1 minus Q0, I will be having 162.6 Q1 minus Q0 mu B upon KH into log T4. Okay, for Q1 minus Q0 I will take T4 time my pressure drop, so K T4 upon 5 mu ct r square minus 3.23 plus 0.87. Now coming to Q2 minus Q1 rate, for that I have 162.6 Q2 minus Q1 into mu B upon KH, it's the same, and over here the time will change. So for Q2 minus Q1 my time would be T4 minus T1. Okay, that means over here it was T4, so now for Q2 minus Q1 I will be having T4 minus T1. Now for delta P, that is pressure drop because of Q3 minus Q2, that would be again the same, the time would be T4 minus T2. Okay, so time over here would be T4 minus T2, and for delta P Q4 minus Q3 my 162.6 Q4 minus Q3 mu b upon kh, and over here the time would be T4 minus T3. Okay, T4 minus T3. So let me repeat it. For Q1 minus Q0, I am having T4 time. For Q2 minus Q1, I have T4 minus T1 time. For Q3 minus Q2, I have T4 minus T2 time. Q4 minus Q3, I have T4 minus T3 time. Alright, so you need to remember this. This is a very important formula, and it's a gate level formula, and questions can be asked from this particular concept. Alright, okay, now let's move forward.
Effect of multiple wells. Now let's say I have one active well, okay, and I have well number 2 at R1 distance, and I have a well number 3 at R3 distance. Okay, well number 2 at R2 distance and well number 3 at R3 distance. Okay, now if I'm recording my pressure disturbance, if I'm going for well testing in well number 1 and I have 2 wells nearby, then definitely I have to consider the effect of these 2 wells also when I'm going for a well testing in this particular well. Okay, now my delta P1, that means the pressure recorded at the well 1 would be a summation of delta P1. That means because of the well itself plus the wells which are present at some distance. Okay, now my delta P1, now if I'm talking about delta P1, that means it's for the active well. For the active well, my formula would be 162.6 Q mu b upon kh into log kt upon 5 mu c t r square minus 3.23 plus 0.87 s. Okay, this is because of the well itself. Now we need to account for the wells which are present at distance R2 and R3. Now to account that, my delta P2, that is because of this well number 2, my formula would be minus 70.6 Q mu b into EI function of minus 948 5 mu c t r R2 square upon kt. Okay, so this is for well number 2, and for well number 3, if I want to account, this would be minus 70.6 Q mu b upon kh EI minus 948 5 mu c t r 5 mu c t R3 square upon kt. Okay, now on summation of all the three, I will get the delta P been recorded at the active well. Alright, so this is the case for a effect of multiple wells. Again, it's a very important concept, a gate level concept. Now let's discuss for part 3. For the third part, which is effect of boundaries. Now let's say I have an active well near a boundary. Okay, now because of this active well being near the boundary, what it does is that, let's say now I have gone for a well testing and I have created some pressure response. Okay, so this pressure response, as you can see, with time a pressure response is going outwards. Okay, once it reaches the boundary, it gets reflected back. See, once it reaches the boundary, it gets reflected back, and now I get a completely different pressure response. Okay, that means because of this boundary, I am experiencing as if I am having an image. Okay, like for example, this boundary acts as if I have a mirror. Okay, and this mirror image will be created at some r dash, imaginary r dash distance, because of this reflection of my pressure response. Now if I am considering what would be my pressure drop of a active well which has a boundary nearby, so my total pressure drop will be delta P1 actual plus delta P1 image. My delta P1 would be 162.6 Q mu b upon kh into log of kt upon 5 mu c t r square minus 3.23 plus 0.87. Now for the image, because of the boundary condition, I am getting this imaginary well. Because of this I am getting this imaginary well. So if I am considering, if I want to account for this delta P image, that would be minus 70.6 Q mu b upon kh into EI function of minus 948 5 mu c t r square into 2 times r. Why 2 times r? Because r plus r, image will be created at same distance only, na? So r plus r, I am considering 2r. So 5 mu c t into 2r upon kt, 2r the whole square into kt. So this is the pressure drop for the image part. Okay, so my total pressure drop would be image P1 actual plus P1 image. Alright, again this is a very important gate level concept, and questions can be asked from this concept. Alright, now let's move further. Discuss pressure buildup testing. Pressure buildup analysis describes the buildup in the wellbore pressure with time after a well has been shut in. One of the principal objectives of this analysis is to determine the static reservoir pressure without waiting weeks or months for the pressure in the entire reservoir to stabilize. Okay, a very important term, and a very important term is that I am able to determine the static reservoir pressure without waiting weeks or months for the pressure in the entire reservoir to stabilize. Okay, that's one of the very important point for a pressure buildup testing. Following assumptions have been made with regard to reservoir fluid, reservoir fluid and the flow behavior. So for the reservoir, it should be homogeneous, isotropic and horizontal of uniform thickness. For a fluid, it is single phase. It should be single phase. It should be slightly compressible and it should have a constant mu, viscosity and formation volume factor of oil. And when it comes to flow, it should be a laminar flow and with no gravity effects. Alright, okay. Now coming to the information derived from this test, I can get an average or initial reservoir pressure. Again, I have discussed average reservoir pressure and initial reservoir pressure. Let's say I have a new well drilled in a reservoir. At that time, whatever I am getting, at that time if I am going for a build-up test, I will get the initial reservoir pressure. Let's say after 20 years of producing the well, that means after depleting the reservoir, now if I am going for the shut-in and if I am recording the pressure, at that time whatever I get is my average reservoir pressure, P average. Okay, so that's the difference between both. Second is permeability. Again, I will be obtaining effective permeability. Skin factor I have already discussed. It is the region of altered permeability near the wellbore. Flow efficiency I have discussed. Flow efficiency is the ratio of P. Is the ratio of productivity index actual divided by productivity index of ideal. It can detect the reservoir heterogeneity within the drainage area. I have already discussed this. And the distance to the linear and the no flow barrier, and can also be discussed. Okay, this particular point 5, that is detect reservoir heterogeneity, I will discuss in coming up slide. Okay, now very important point and a very crucial point to be taken into consideration is that stabilizing the well at a constant rate before testing is a very important part of a pressure buildup test. If the stabilization is overlooked or is impossible, then a standard data analysis technique may provide erroneous information about the formation. Alright, so this stabilizing is a very important term. And how will you stabilize? I will stabilize this well, that is prior to shut-in period. I will flow the well at some constant Q. Okay, at some constant flow rate I will flow the well so that I get a stabilized condition. Okay, now corresponding to the constant flow rate, I will record the pressure. Again, see there is the pressure is not a straight line. Okay, it's a slight inclination is there, which is very obvious thing. Okay, and once at this point I have started my shut-in, I have shut the well, and you can see that my pressure is developing. See, because of well shut-in, my pressure is developing. I have discussed this in my initial slides also why this pressure is developing. Alright, okay. Now whatever pressure I am responding, whatever flowing bottom hole pressure is I am recording at delta T equal to 0 will be my flowing bottom hole pressure, shut-in flowing bottom hole pressure. Okay, this delta T is the time for shut-in. Delta T is the time for shut-in. TP is my producing time. Okay, producing time. That means whatever cumulative volume I have produced between this particular time frame divided by my flow rate that I had kept. Okay, on doing this cumulative divided by flow rate, this would be constant, again obvious. Okay, this NP divided by Q, I will get my producing time. Alright, okay, so delta T and TP I have discussed. Now let's move further. Coming to Horner's plot, let's look at the assumptions that are involved in Horner plot. Reservoir is an homogeneous, isotropic, slightly compressible single phase fluid. It is an infinite acting reservoir and EI or the law of approximation is applied. Okay, so these are the assumptions involved in Horner plot derivation. So let's look at the derivation part. Applying the superposition principle to the shut-in well, the total pressure change, that is Pi minus PWS, which occurs at the wellbore during the shut-in time, delta T, again delta T shut-in time I have discussed, is essentially the sum of the pressure change caused by the constant flow rate from Q to 0 and that of 0 to Q. So delta P will be Pi minus PWS. So Pi is the initial, PWS is the shut-in time. The sum it would be equal to summation of delta P due to Q to 0 and delta P due to 0 to Q. Okay, now on doing that, on placing the values, I will get for Q to 0 it should be 162.6 Q minus 0 into mu naught B upon KH into log of TP plus delta T. Okay, TP plus delta B means this amount of this time. This is my TP and this is delta T. So this will be my Tp plus delta T. Okay, so K into Tp plus delta T upon 5 mu Ct R square minus 3.23 plus 0.87. Okay, this particular concept I have discussed when I was discussing effect of rate change in superposition. In superposition principle, I had already discussed how this funda works. Okay, all right. So this is for Q0 time, and for 0 to Q, I will have 162.6 0 minus Q upon Q mu B upon KH plus log KT, log K into delta T. Okay, and in this from 0 to Q, I will take this delta T time only, minus 3.23 plus 0.87. Now if I'm adding both the thing, I will be left out with this equation, which is Pi minus Ws equal to 162.6 Q mu B upon KH into log of Tp plus delta T upon delta T, where this Tp plus delta T upon delta T is my Horner time. Horner time is Tp plus delta T upon delta T. Very important. This is the Horner time. And now if I am taking PWS, or the shut-in pressure, shut-in sand phase pressure, as the subject of equation, that will be equal to Pi minus 162.6 Q mu B upon KH into log Tp plus delta T. Okay, so this particular term can be a straight line equation also. If you are looking very closely, then it acts as if it is a straight line equation. Okay, in the above equation, my Pi is the initial reservoir pressure, PWS is my sand phase pressure, Tp is my flowing time before the shut-in, Q0 is my stabilized well flow rate before shut-in, and delta T is my shut-in time in hours. Okay, all right. Now let's move further. So again, this is the equation that I obtained. This equation acts as if it is a straight line, yx is equal to mx plus c. Okay, and this is the graph that I am obtaining. This is the graph I obtained from the Horner plot. Very important graph. Okay, so from this graph you can see that I am getting three different regions: early time region, mid time region, and average and late time region. Okay, three different region I am obtaining. All right. Okay, this equation acts as if it is a straight line. Okay, so if this is my straight line, okay, let this be the straight line. So this would have followed this particular region. Okay, this would have followed, if it were a straight line, and it would have followed this particular region. Okay, but you can see that in the early time region, my trend is not following the straight line. See, there is a deflection from the straight line. Okay, only in the mid time region my trend is being followed, and at the late time region also sometimes this trend will not be following. Okay, that means this particular mid time region, what we are talking about, in this particular mid time region only, whatever assumptions that we have taken while deriving the Horner's plot is applicable in this particular region only. That means if I am telling that Horner plot is a straight line, then the straight line, whatever straight line I am obtaining, it would be applicable in this region, that is the mid time region only. My straight line equation comes into play. In the early time region, I will get these disturbances. These disturbances may be because of the Velbor storage effect. Again, we have discussed Velbor storage effect. Okay, and it may be because of the skin factor. So these two terms plays an important part in the early time region. Okay, whatever disturbances that I am obtaining, that is the reason why my trend is not following the straight line. The reason is because of this Velbor storage and the skin factor. All right, in my mid time region, see, in my mid time region, I will get a straight line. That means the assumption that I have taken is true, and whatever I analyze, whatever analysis I do at the mid time region, that will be true for my reservoir quantitative analysis. Okay, so in the mid time region I will be having a proper radial flow. In the late time region, generally this late time region I will be using for my boundary calculations and my average reservoir pressure calculation. One of the important principles in the objective itself I have discussed is that one of the advantage of my pressure buildup is that I don't have to shut the well for long period of time. That means I don't have to go for an infinite period of shut-in. Okay, that is, only with a short period of shut-in also I can get my average reservoir pressure. That means I can get my average reservoir pressure in short well shut-in also, and I don't have to resort for a longer shut-in period of time or infinite shut-in period of time, because once I have this particular trend, okay, once I have this particular trend, what I can do is that I can extrapolate it. I can extrapolate it till my Horner time becomes 1. Okay, once I get this Horner time 1, if I'm extrapolating it, whatever pressure I am obtaining will be my average reservoir pressure. Alright, okay. Now I will, so from the equation only I can see that if I am considering it as a straight line, whatever slope I am obtaining from this, equation, that would be m is equal to 162.6 q mu b upon kh. Okay, this is the skin factor that I am obtaining. I will prove how to solve this thing in the coming up slide. So this is the skin that I am obtaining from the Horner's time. The formula would be S is equal to 1.151 into this, where P is at 1 hour minus PWF upon M minus log of K 5 mu CT R square plus 3.23. Okay, I will obtain this skin factor at P is equal to 1 hour. I will derive it in coming up slide. Slope I am obtaining from this curve, this will be positive in nature. Slope will always be positive in nature, positive slope. Okay, when we will discuss drawdown, at that time I will get a negative slope. Okay, I will discuss this in, well, whenever I am discussing drawdown. And take special note, on the y-axis I have my shut-in pressure, and on x-axis my delta T over here is increasing with time. That means my delta T, which is my shut-in time, is increasing in this direction. Okay, coming to the average reservoir pressure, as we have mentioned that my delta T is increasing this way. Now my Tp plus delta T upon delta T is my Horner's time. So if I am Tp plus delta T upon delta T, so this will be 1. So 1 plus Tp upon delta T. Okay, now if I'm assuming that my as I mentioned, the delta T is increasing in this side. So if I'm assuming that my delta T is infinite, so if I'm placing the infinite delta T over here, so we know 1 upon infinite will always be 0. So what I will be left out with will be 1. Okay, once I have 1. Okay, now what I'm doing is that 1, I got my Horner time as 1. Now if I'm placing this 1 over here, now log of 1 will be equal to 0. Okay, now keeping log of 1 equal to 0, so my equation will be PWS equal to Pi minus 1 minus slope of log of 1. Okay, this would be giving my answer as shut-in pressure equal to initial pressure. Okay, that's why instead of going for a infinite shut-in time, if I'm going for a short shut-in time also, I can get initial reservoir pressure or the average reservoir pressure. Alright, okay. So that's how you get my average reservoir pressure, by using a Horner plot. Now let's discuss the determination of permeability. So you can see that, again, this is my equation, this is my Horner's plot equation. Okay, the slope, whatever I'm getting, the slope will always be positive in case of a build-up testing, and it will be negative in case of a drawdown testing. I will discuss this why negative when I am discussing drawdown. So my slope would be 162.6 q mu b upon kh. So my permeability, this is the effective permeability that I am talking about. Okay, so my effective permeability would be 162.6 q mu b upon m upon mh. Okay, again I got the effective permeability from the mid-time region. See, from the mid-time region only I obtained this effective permeability. Now talking about determination of average reservoir pressure, I have discussed that to obtain average reservoir pressure or to obtain the initial reservoir pressure, at that time I will keep my Horner's time as 1, my Tp upon delta T plus Tp plus delta T upon delta T. Again, on keeping my delta T as very infinite, that means if I'm taking my delta T as very much greater than my produced time, or let's say my delta T is infinite, equal to infinite, 1 upon infinite we know it will be equal to 0. So this term will be 0 and I will be left out with log 1. Okay, now on keeping log 1 to the equation, I will get my PWS is equal to Pi, which is my initial pressure. Okay, so I got my average reservoir pressure or initial reservoir pressure. Initial reservoir pressure I will be obtaining when I am drilling a new well. If I am going for well testing a new well, at that time I will get my average reservoir, at that time I will get my initial reservoir pressure. And if I have gone for a testing in a depleted well, at that time whatever pressure I am recording will be my average reservoir pressure. Okay, alright. So I can extrapolate it by getting, I can extrapolate the Horner's time to get my average reservoir pressure of the well bore of the reservoir. Now coming to determination of the skin, let's look at the derivation. The skin is not included in the Horner's equation. To involve this parameter, the last flowing pressure, that is PWS, is subtracted from both the sides of the equation, Horner equation. So I have subtracted the last flowing flow rate. Okay, on doing that, this would be my expression. Alright, now usually the shut-in time, that is delta T, is very small in comparison with the production time. Okay, so my TP plus delta T, if I'm considering my delta T as very small, that is again my early time region I'm talking about, I will be calculating skin at the early time region. Okay, so what I will be doing is that considering my TP plus delta T is almost equal to my TP. Okay, so what I did is that, and for getting the calculation of T, I assume my delta T to be equal to 1 hour. For 1 hour, for my shut-in time, when I shut the well bore, at that time the pressure recorded at delta T equal to 1 hour. Okay, what I did is that now in the same equation, the equation that I have over here, so I kept my PWS at delta T 1 hour minus PWF 162.6 Q mu B upon KH is log K upon 5 mu CT R square minus 3.23 plus 0.87. Now taking this, now what I will be doing is that I will be taking the skin as the subject of equation. On taking my skin as the subject of equation, the final answer of obtaining skin would be 1.151 into P at 1 hour, that is shut in pressure at 1 hour, minus my PWF when my shut-in time was 0, whatever pressure PWF I had recorded, I will keep that, upon M is the slope, minus log K upon 5 mu CT R square plus 3.23. Okay,
now let's discuss two variations of Horner plot. Okay, I have already discussed this Horner plot where my delta T was increasing this side. Okay, that means at this point my delta T was 0, and at this point my delta T, that is my shut-in time, was infinity. Okay, and again that means 0 means over here I have started my pressure response testing. Okay, and this T plus delta T upon delta T is my Horner's time, and if I am keeping my delta T in this direction, my Horner's time will be increasing in this particular direction. Got it? Okay, from this graph I got my early time region, mid time region and late time region. All right. Okay, now there's another variation of Horner's time. In fact, both the graphs are same, but in this diagram you can see that my Horner's time is increasing in this right side direction. Okay, and my well shut in is, that means the shut in time over here is 0 and over here is infinity. Okay, that means my delta T is increasing in this direction. All right, in this also early time region is shown by this region, mid time region and late time region. Okay, and this particular point over here is my P average. Okay, that is reservoir pressure average, and in this particular graph my P average was this. See that my TP plus delta T is increasing in this direction, that means my delta T is increasing in this direction. Okay, now again this is the shut-in time versus my log of Horner time. Now you can see that I am getting this kind of a trend. Okay, here and at the reservoir condition itself, initially early time region, and I am getting a break in the slope. Okay, I am getting a change in the slope. Now if I get a change in the slope, at that time I can say that there is some sort of a fault nearby. Okay, there is some sort of a fault, and we can also identify at what angle the fault is. For that I have this formula, that is m1 by m2 divided m1 by m2 equal to 360 by theta. Once I have the slope value, okay, now let's say I have a fault at 180 degree. Okay, now that is 360 by 180, so my ratio of m1 by m2 will be 2. Okay, now if I'm getting my ratio of m1 by m2 equal to 2, I can definitely say that I have a fault 180 degree. Now let's say I have a fault at 90 degree. Okay, the right angle fault is there, I have drilled a well. Okay, now the pressure response is traveling in this direction. Okay, now once it hits the wall, that is once it hits the boundary, it will again come back. See, it is now coming back. Okay, now let's say now I have got a trend. Now I am now plotting a Horner's plot. At that time I am getting a break in the slope. Okay, now since now if someone is asking me what would be my m1 by m2, then at that time my answer would be m1 by m2 equal to 360 by, since it is 90 divided by 4, 360 by 90, my answer would be 4. So my ratio of m1 by m2 will be 4 when I am having a 90 degree faults. Okay, similarly you can identify, let's say my m1 by m2 is, let's say 3. Okay, now if I want to identify what would be my angle of the fault, okay, so for that we can get as 3 is equal to 360 by theta is equal to 120. That means I have a 120 degree fault in my reservoir. All right, okay, so this is fault recognition system. Got it? Okay, now let's move to bounded reservoir. Now in the bounded reservoir, again boundary is indicated when I am a late time region. Okay, I am not concerned with the mid-time region, neither I am concerned with the early time region. Only thing I am concerned with to identify the boundary would be late time region. Okay. Now on extrapolation, let's say I will get this trend. Okay. Now by some chance by some chance, let's say I've got for a extended build-up, I'm getting a fall in the trend. Okay. That means this particular fall in the trend indicates that I have some sort of a bounded reservoir. Okay. So this is the trend for a bounded reservoir. Again, my log t plus delta t upon delta t is in this direction, and my delta t is in this direction. Shut-in time is in this direction. All right. Okay. Now let's move further. Now in this case, I have compared the early time region when I'm having a positive skin and a negative skin. Okay. Again, this is a Horner plot with PWS or shut-in pressure versus my Horner time, where my delta t is increasing in this side. Okay. Now in the early time region, if I am having a positive skin, at that time I will get a disturbance like this. Okay. And if I am having a negative skin, okay, that means if I have some sort of a fractured well, or I have gone for a well stimulation, at that time I will have in the early time region, my trend will be something like this. Before going for a build-up test, I will have to produce my well at some constant Q. Okay. Now in this particular figure of pressure versus time, that is flowing bottom hole pressure versus time, I can see that if I am having three different cases, like if I am having a skin of negative, skin equal to 0, which is my ideal case, and my skin greater than 0. Okay, for that you can see how my PWF varies. All right. Okay. In this particular diagram, I have compared two cases where I am having no skin case and a moderate skin case. Okay, because of skin, my pressure drop will be higher. Okay, again this is a pressure change versus time, delta t, where delta t is increasing in this side. Okay, so this is how you have a variation in Horner plots when I have a positive skin and a negative skin. All right. Okay, now let's move further. This particular Horner plot I am getting when I am having a naturally fractured reservoir. Okay, so I will be having three different slopes, where in the mid-time region only I will be having three different slopes of slope m by 2, and slope m. All right, where my slope m shows flow regime 1, slope m by 2 shows flow regime 2, and again the third slope will be for flow regime 3. Now we need to understand what is a naturally fractured reservoir. Okay, this is a schematic of a naturally fractured reservoir, where I will be having matrix as well as fracture. Okay, over here matrix and fracture will be having their individual porosity of matrix and permeability of matrix, and for fracture I will be having their individual porosity of fracture and permeability of the fracture. Okay, in this particular figure there are works present, there are fractures present. Okay, so this can be accounted in my fracture system, plus the entire rock, we know there will be matrix present. Okay, so those matrix can be termed as my matrix system. Now while modeling a naturally fractured reservoir in the reservoir simulation, what I will do is that I will consider these cubes. Okay, small cubes. That's cubes represents my matrix system, and the fractures represent, see, these are the fractures over here. Okay, this purple region that I am indicating are my fractures. So in this way I can in this way, while doing my reservoir simulation, I will separate my fracture system as well as my matrix system. All right. Okay, now you can see that in this particular figure I can have four types of naturally fractured reservoir. Okay, varying from whether my fracture is dominating or my matrix is dominated. Okay, if I'm talking about type 1 fracture or type 1 naturally fractured reservoir, for that my fracture domination will be very high. Okay, so you can see that in this particular figure, this is for a type 1 where my high porosity of fracture is there and high permeability of fracture is there, and negligible porosity of matrix is found. Okay, now for fracture 2 case, now you can see that for type 2 high permeability of matrix and fracture is there, and negligible porosity of fracture and negligible porosity of matrix is found. Okay, now in type 3 kind of a naturally fractured reservoir, see, in this case my matrix porosity is high and my matrix and fracture permeability are high, but my porosity of fracture is less. So this is for type 3. And for type 4 kind of a naturally fractured reservoir, you can see that I will be having a negligible porosity of fracture and negligible permeability of fracture, and I will be having a matrix dominated system over there. Okay, now let's discuss this particular case where my well is between two parallel layers. Okay, that means just look at this system. These are two okay, let's say my well is over here. Okay, and these are faults. Okay, let's say these are faults and there is no communication between the faults. Okay, and because of this, let's say if I am having a well at the center, if I am having a producer well between two parallel faults, okay, between two parallel faults, if I am having, as I am seen in my principle of superposition, the principle of superposition, I have already discussed that when I'm having a fault nearby, okay, the pressure, let's say this is a 180-degree fault, okay, the pressure response will reach the boundary and then it will be reflected back. Okay, so it will behave as if I have a well, I have an imaginary well at same distance of r. Okay, at some distance of r. Here, since I'm having two different two parallel faults, okay, so what it does is that it will create image on both the sides. Okay, infinite number of images will be formed. See, like this, infinite number of images will be formed. That is when my pressure response has reached the boundary. At that time, because of this infinite number of wells formed because of images, I will have this increase in my latent region. Okay, now let's discuss this particular case where my well is perforated in stratified layers. Okay, now this is a well I have drilled a well. I perforated in layer A, layer B and layer C. Okay, and layer A will be having different kind of a porosity, permeability. Okay, similarly layer B will be having different porosity, permeability. Similarly layer C will have different porosity and permeability. Alright, now when for a stratified layer, let's say this straight line would have been the Horner's plot. Okay, that means if the straight line indicates whatever assumption and limitation I have taken while deriving the Horner plot will be satisfied when my trend lies in the straight line. For a particular stratified layer, you can see that my trend has diverted. Okay, this diversion in the trend is because of the stratified layers. The fractured well case, okay, as we know, let's say this is my well bore and this is the map view I am showing you. Okay, this is the map view and let's say this is the well bore with the well bore radius of Rw. Okay, now I have created this fracture. Let this be the width of the fracture. Okay, now this is the fracture and let this be the XF or the fracture half line. Now you can see that my flow will flow linearly in the fracture. Okay, from the formation it will go linearly into the formation. So you can see that my flow is going from the reservoir linearly into the fracture. Okay, so this, if I'm combining both, it will be a bilinear flow. So this will be a formation linear. That means linearly it will enter the formation, and as we go farther away, it will be a radial flow. Alright. So because of these four different kinds of a flow regime, I will have four different slopes. Okay, but one thing that you have to note that in my Horner plot I won't be getting that much of a variation. Okay, in the Horner plot, if I'm having a fracture well, I will be getting some sort of a deviation, but not that significant. Okay, to identify this kind of a flow regime, I will have to go for diagnostic plots. Okay, I have to go for the study of diagnostic plot. When I will be discussing diagnostic plot in the coming up sessions. Okay, at that time I will discuss these things in detail. Diagnostic plot will be dp by dt into delta t versus time log. So these are log plots, log of this and log of this. Okay, log of time. These are the log plots. Okay, now I will be having a slope 1, slope 1 by 2, 1 by 4, 1 by 2 and 0. For radial it will be 0, for formation linear 1 by 2, for bilinear it's 1 by 4 and fracture linear it's 1 by 2, and for well bore storage it will be 1. I will be discussing this thing in detail when I discuss diagnostic plots. Okay, as of now let's move further. I have a numerical for you guys. So let's discuss this numerical on analyzing the ideal pressure buildup test. A new well produced 400 barrel per day for 2.5 days. Then it was shut in for a pressure buildup test, during which the data in the table, okay, this particular data I have obtained when I have gone for a pressure buildup. This data was recorded. Other data where B0 is given, H, porosity, radius of the well bore is given, total compressibility, viscosity is given. You have to estimate the formation permeability, PI, the initial pressure and the skin. Okay, very simple numerical. Over here it is also been given that my 1 hour pressure at 1 hour is 1779 psi. Okay, alright. Now again I have written down the entire given data. Now from the given table, okay, from the given table, let's say I have this plot. Okay, I have this graph. Okay, now what I do is that now I need to find out slope. to find out my effective permeability, I know that my M is equal to 162.6 Q mu B upon KH. Okay, so I need to identify what would be my slope. Now to get the slope, what I will do is that I will take 2 points on the straight line thing. Okay, I know this would be my early time region, this would be my mid time region. Okay, so in the mid time region I will take 2 points in the straight line and I will get the corresponding values. Okay, so my slope M is equal to P2 minus P1 upon log T2 upon log T2 minus T1 log T1. Now P2 minus P1 upon log T2 by T1. Okay, because it is minus over, so I can divide T2 by T1 inside the log. Now on solving that, my answer would be 98 psi per cycle. Okay, now once I have the slope, now I know this is the formula, 162.6 Q mu B upon KH will be my slope. Okay, now on placing all the values which is already given in the problem and placing the value of M as 98, I will get my effective permeability as 45.6 millidarcy. Okay, so this is how you identify what would be my effective permeability in this particular reservoir for this particular given data. Now now we know to identify or to calculate the skin. This is the formula 1.151 P at 1 hour of shut-in minus P flowing bottom hole pressure when I started my shut-in divided by M minus log K upon 5 mu Ct Rw square plus 3.23. Okay, now my final answer, that is on putting all the values, given values, I will get my answer as 1.37. all right. Okay, now to find out the initial reservoir pressure, I know this is my Horner time. Okay, now Tp upon delta T plus delta T upon delta T, I can write this down. Okay, so delta T upon delta T is 1 and Tp upon delta T, I'm trying to extrapolate at that time. That means I will consider my shut-in time as infinite time when I go for calculating initial pressure. Okay, so if I place delta T as infinite, I will get 1 upon infinity, that means 0. Okay, so my final answer, that is my log time, has to be 1. Now as per the formula of Horner plot, PWS, which is my pressure at shut-in, equal to P initial minus log Tp plus delta T upon delta T. Now I found that my Tp plus delta T upon delta T equal to 1. Okay, now log 1 is 0. So my shut-in pressure equal to initial pressure. Okay, that means from this particular graph, if I extrapolate it till I reach my Horner time of 1. Okay, that means if I reach my Horner time of 1, at that time whatever pressure I am getting will be my initial reservoir pressure. That's exactly what we are doing. That is 1960 psi. Alright, so that's all for this session. Thank you. Jai Hind.